this is the chance to get into cyber, and I'm staying there.
My guest today is Pavlina Pavlova. She is a cyber policy and diplomacy specialist whose research focuses on online threats to women and other vulnerable groups.
Many careers, especially in politics, are being destroyed. We saw elections being lost.
Pavlina was a nominee for International Cybersecurity Woman of the World Award. Her passion is to translate cyber threats into policies that offer safer online spaces.
Growing up in the 90s in post-socialist country, it means that you grow up in a lot of insecurity. You just internally feel like this is something I want to change.
We discuss gender disinformation and how advances of artificial intelligence are creating threats, especially for women. Please subscribe to The Rema Show wherever you're watching or listening to it. Pavlina Pavlova, so excited to have you in my podcast. Thank you. You are a cybersecurity policy specialist. The thing that got me really excited is that you're one of the finalists for the Cybersecurity Woman of the Year 2024. Can you tell me more about this event and like what it means for you?
It's a very nice event. It's a huge event. It's very important recognition for women in the field. And it's not just about the award, it's not just about the competition, it's also about creating community, creating enabling community for women to feel recognized, to feel heard, to connect them so they can support each other.
Can you tell me more about yourself? You were born in Slovakia, and about your career. How did you come to be who you are today?
That can be very short or very long. So I was born in Slovakia, and you have great memory to remember that. And I started my career in Brussels, in the European Parliament, and I think it was that one was a coincidence. I was assigned to Internal Market and Consumer Protection Committee, which was dealing with the new Commission coming in, and the new legislative term was dealing with digital single market. So a lot of legislation aimed on digital, cyber affairs, cybercrime, network and information security, and I got very much exposed to these issues, and I got so excited because it was the time of hearings, and we would have cybersecurity specialists and like digital market specialists from the US explaining what is happening, explaining what we need to do in Europe for the consumers, for the market, to develop, to innovate. But for me, what was kind of hindering factor was when I wanted to continue in this field, I felt like I don't have enough experiences, which now I understand is normal, because when you start, you're getting experiences. But I thought, cyber may be a very specific field, and maybe I already lost the opportunity not having specific education on that until I was seconded to Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and there. I was working with human rights defenders, with civil society, and seeing that for human rights and for security, how important this digital dimension is, how important it is when we speak about disinformation targeting them, about spyware targeting them, about online harassment, etc. And I became the lead trainer for digital security for these targeted groups. And from that, I knew this is the chance to get into cyber, and I'm staying there. Mm-hmm. I'm continuing. Whatever is the road ahead, whether there is, whether I can be successful in the field, or I'll be just publishing on my own for a while. I really wanted to be part of that space. And from that, I became public policy advisor at the Cyber Peace Institute in Geneva, which is cyber policy NGO. And I was covering UN processes on cybersecurity and cybercrime. And now I have a fellowship in DC with New America, specifically on cyber policies, and we can dive into it deeper later on. And how cyber attacks impact vulnerable groups, and how they specifically impact women and gender and sexual minorities. And I advise the UNODC on cybercrime initiative.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's wow, it's quite a lot to take on
Lot of
board.
information.
Yeah. What is it about cyber, like, or the role that you are playing now? You know, with your research at New America and your current role. Is it the groups that you're working with that makes it more exciting, or is it because cyber is just, I mean, it's massive, isn't it? Like you need to have a niche, and you found that niche, as I understand, right, for yourself, like working with, as you said, like women and vulnerable groups.
I think, as I understand cyber, as I feel about it, is it's very complex, and the complexity makes it actually very exciting because it's everything at the same time. And actually having this background in geopolitics and political matters and area studies helps me to understand the dynamics of negotiations better. Because at the end of the day, like, for example, UN negotiations will have a lot of geopolitics included in that with the cyber layer on the top. What I feel that is my, like, personal passion, and I bring that into my work and into my research, is to make the connection between how cyber influences people on the ground, what are the very human influences, what is the harm to people, and also what are the opportunities that we can have from technologies for people, and make this evidence into policies and argue for better protection for people, and argue for safer online spaces with concrete recommendations based on the evidence that I see on the ground.
Can you tell me more about, like, what is gender disinformation and why is it so becoming, like, really important for people to understand? Like, how is it influencing, I don't know, like life and in countries like Georgia, or I guess anywhere where women are being specifically targeted, and as I understand it, with the aim of kind of eliminating them from the political space or wherever they are being active.
I think when we speak about disinformation, there is, or any gendered cyber attacks, the context of it will be offline. We have offline context. For example, gender disinformation is successful because there is still a lot of misogyny in the society. There is a lot of biased perception toward women. If they didn't exist offline, it wouldn't be a powerful weapon online. Women are specifically vulnerable to it because we still as a society have a bias of certain perception. What are the norms of behavior? What should women look like? What should women do? And you see that especially people who are troublemakers, who are disrupting these norms, who are change makers, are being targeted. You see journalists being targeted, human rights defenders, activists, whistleblowers, political candidates. So all those who want to make change in the society. And as you mentioned, the point of these disinformation campaigns or any kind of attacks, because it may start with disinformation, but it then piles into harassment, to doxing, into intimidation, online and offline. And the goal of this disinformation is to exclude certain groups of people from participating in democratic processes, in public lives, excluding them, and making them, taking away their voice.
If you are unfortunate enough to be targeted and become the victim of gender disinformation, for women particularly, it's really difficult to clear their names and to kind of return to the space where they were active. Can you tell me more about this? I mean, it's still a new area.
We still need to raise awareness about it. It's still not known in some places. It's still not known how much it impacts people, and we still don't have enough of responses or effective responses and remedies to this. But at the same time, you have a lot of attacks, such as data exploiting attacks, hacking of accounts, hacking data, which can be personal, like healthcare data, using of spyware, or even attacks, disruptive attacks on critical infrastructure, which have different impacts on on people based on gender. And this is not covered sufficiently in the research. And this is coming back to my shared the Maven Cyber Fellowship with New America. This is the core of my research, to actually look into data exploitation and how it differently impacts women, and also how they can be differently targeted because of their gender.
And how is the advances of AI, how's it affecting this area? Because it's becoming so much more easier to alter images, to create fake voices and so on. How is this? Is it also something that will be part of your research? I mean, the advances of AI. Yeah,
absolutely. I want to include it because it's a growing problem, and especially in spreading non-consensual intimate images in this category of attacks. It will be a massive problem. It already is a massive problem. We already had incidents when this happens, whether it happens to mostly to public people, publicly known women, such as journalists, but also different kind of celebrities, etc. So people who are known and who are being whose reputation is being tarnished this way, it's very hard to recover after that, and it takes a lot of, I think the first response is strong community response to go against these narratives, to refuse them, to call on this behavior, to call on this fake content, and to show the societal resilience in this sense. Like we will not kind of justify this content. We will stand behind the person to whom it happened.
What can women who are being targeted by such abuse online, what can they do you think, to fight back? Because it's very easy just to give up and forget and disappear.
We saw examples when journalists recovered, but it was in societies that supported them. Because at the end of the day, you work within certain contexts. You work within certain societal setting, certain political setting, etc. And if this kind of community is being supportive to you when such attacks happens, it has long-term psychological impacts. It still may have long-term reputational impacts. It's definitely still very damaging for the victims of such attacks, but their lives and their careers can continue. If the society simply gives in to the narratives, we saw many careers, especially in politics, being destroyed. We saw elections being lost for this candidate, and we also saw journalists withdrawing from public spaces because of the trade-off of their security and security of their families. What is often happening with this, gendered attacks in online spaces is that they target wider communities of the women. They target their relatives. They may target their kids as well, which is very damaging for the people, which very much violates the understanding and feeling of safety, and for many this is the final result why they say this is not worth it. I will withdraw. Very much depends on the societies.
Do you think that what you're doing, does it really resonate with who you are? Do you find ways for like self-expression in your work? And how would you like your career develop further?
I think at this point it's about impact. Like something that really drives me is to have impact on the field, is to get the stories out, is to get the harm you see happening to people to the policy spaces, so it's acknowledged and something actually changes, is to evidence the negative impacts to create better victim support mechanisms, but also better response and prevention to such attacks. So for me, it's not about any concrete role. It's about how we see all this evidence, how we can actually make it hurt, how we can impact how it's happening, because we got very much used to gender disinformation. We got very much used to people, like having these very toxic online spaces. We got used to attacks. We got used to ransomware attacks on critical infrastructure, on hospitals. And suddenly it's a new normal, and we are just waking up into it, and we are realizing what we need to do. And I want to make sure through my career that these responses are taking into account what is happening to marginalized groups, what is happening to those who are overexposed or in positions of vulnerability, and how we can actually bring meaningful accountability for them.
And on the question about how it resonates with who you are, do you think what you're doing, what you're spending so much of your lifetime, like dedication, do you have some kind of like hidden dream inside that when you've done your research, when you've completed this, you'll go and start something new? Like,
I think there is space in life for everything. For now, it's really about cyber policy and diplomacy, which resonates with me, and I think it's also calling because growing up in the 90s in post-socialist country, it means that you grow up in a lot of insecurity and a lot of closed spaces for participation. And you just internally feel like this is something I want to change. This is something that really needs to move on. So for this phase of my life, it makes me very happy, and I feel very blessed that I can work on these issues. And again, the complexity of cyber policy and cybercrime on which I work, it makes you very engaged. It's beautiful to meet people in the field, and you meet so many passionate people who just want to do things, want to discuss things, want to move things, want to create things. So it's absolutely beautiful environment to work in.
thank you so much,
Thank
Pavlina Pavlova. Thank you for being in my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Please subscribe and like The Ramesh Show wherever you're watching or listening to it.